calling Survive to Thrive. And really our goal was to recreate the vibrant startup community that exists in Boise, as we're all limited on the amount of time and number of people that we can get together in any one space. So we've been using this as an opportunity to build on those connections, to feature startups, and to feature the strong community that we have here. And super excited to kick off our preview of Boise Startup Week, which, if you're not aware, is the week of October 26th. So just around the corner. But we're going to start off with a couple of gentlemen from Alturas Capital. And they've been generous enough to take the lead on the talent track, universities, high schools, all the way through. So I'll throw it to TM and ask him to share a few words. He's the co-chair of Boise Startup Week, in addition to his role as the executive director of Trailhead. And then we'll ask Jeff and Luke to introduce themselves, and we'll jump right into the conversation.
Thanks, Nick. TM Rostigard here, executive director over at Trailhead. Really excited for today's discussion about the university engagement at Boise Startup Week. For those of you who aren't that familiar with Boise Startup Week and or its history, the youth and talent tracks targeting high school students and college students was really the genesis of why Boise Startup Week was started about 5 years ago. There was a need for talent retention as well as talent attraction, and a need for raising awareness of Boise just being a great and cool place to live and work and start a business. And so Startup Week really got started with that in mind. And so the reason I bring that up is the youth and talent tracks are cornerstones of Startup Week. They're very important to us. Over the years, we've fostered some pretty amazing university engagement across the various tracks at Startup Week. And as I'm setting the table, and before I get into the programming for the universities and talking to Jeff and Luke, I'd like to just kind of set the table in terms of the university's role in a startup ecosystem and what universities do. And what better way of having the executive director at the Venture College on with us today, also the host, also involved in Startup Week, to tell us a little bit about what's going on at the Venture College. Nick, how do you see the role of universities? And also touch on the program that the Venture College is launching for university students at Startup Week. And with that, we can sort of set the table and then give Jeff and Luke an opportunity to chime in.
Sure. I won't take too much of the time that we have set aside for Jeff and Luke, but just at a high level, I think we're not only a place for students to start businesses, we're also a talent recruitment opportunity for a lot of the startups. We tend to have students come to us that are inclined towards working for startups versus a big corporation or another type of business. Specifically around Boise Startup Week, we have a program that's it started here at the Venture College in partnership with some industry folks, but we're actually opening it up to U of I, Idaho State, BYU Idaho, LCSC, any higher education institution in Idaho that we call Hacking for Home Building. And the genesis of this was a guy named Levi Smith, who's the president of Franklin Building Supply. Levi came to us and said, how do we build on the history of the building materials industry in Boise and in Idaho? And how do we engage with startups? And how do we get access to students? So from that, we developed this program, like I said, Hacking for Home Building. Don't let the word hacking throw you off. It's not just about computers or software applications. But what they've done, the industry partners, is they have brought problem statements to us. There will end up being about 25 problem statements. Students will come the week of October, I think it's October 12th, so a couple weeks before Boise Startup Week. They'll get access to those problem statements, and then they will come up with solutions that could then be turned into businesses. They'll pitch those solutions to the industry experts and other folks, and they'll have the chance to win $10,000 for first place, $5,000 for second place, and $2,500 for third. So it's a kind of a 7 to 10 day scramble to come up with an idea. But what we like about it is that it really takes entrepreneurship to its core, which is discovering a problem, coming up with a solution to that problem, and then of course, seeing if someone will pay you for that problem. But students have a chance to earn some real money and take their ideas a little bit further. So
it's a reverse pitch competition, and there's 17,500 on the line in prize money to be divvied up amongst the winners.
Yep.
Okay, if that didn't the attention of university students, I don't know what will. 17.5 sounds pretty good to me. Okay, Hacking for Homes. I know there's a similar program that's being worked on. So why don't we, thank you for giving us that overview, Nick. I just think it's important to also call out that these initiatives, these events, that are becoming part of Boise Startup Week, they're agnostic. You're opening it up to all the universities, which I think is great. And so, Jeff and Luke, why don't we switch gears? Why don't I start with you, Jeff? Give us a brief intro on yourself and tell us a little bit about Alturas, and then pass it on to Luke, so we have a good understanding of what you do there and what Alturas is all about.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having us, Tim, and we're excited to talk about Boise Startup Week. It's an organization that I've been a part of since I moved here from San Francisco a couple years ago, and have sat on the food track chair or committee over the last couple years. And it's an event that we all look forward to every year, and this year is no different. Format's a little modified, but we think we're still going to be able to accomplish our goals and engage the university students and staff in the event. So my quick background, I'm a bit of a journeyman in terms of my career. I've done everything from finance to product management and software and sustainability consulting. And I'm now the director of investments and acquisitions at Alturas. And most people might think of Alturas, if you know about Alturas. It was founded by Blake Hansen, who's been a key contributor, both financially and also with his time in the startup community here in Boise. And he has built an organization that has a few different pieces to it. One is Alturas Homes, which is one of the top home builders here in the Treasure Valley. We also have a real estate investment fund, which is called Alturas Capital Partners. Has about $150 million in commercial real estate assets across Idaho and the broader Intermountain West, all the way really down to Arizona. And the initiative that I work on and that Luke works on is kind of a three-pronged investment vehicle. So we call it build, buy, and invest. So building, we work with great entrepreneurs to help lift them up through seed investment, through angel investment, and through resource. So one of our colleagues, for example, is working right now with a startup, and he's running their sales and marketing in partnership. And then our investment, our buy strategy is really more of a traditional private equity practice. So we acquire majority ownership stakes in companies. And then we also invest, and we're very active in the angel and seed community here, and continuing to get more involved in that. So anyone who's on the call, if you're raising money, let us know. If you're selling your business or know someone who is, let us know. Or if you need help kind of getting over that next hurdle, we really try to be value first and a partnership driven model. So that's a little bit about Alturas.
Very cool. No, thank you for that. And both in appreciation and in full disclosure, Alturas is a financial sponsor of Startup Week, but that's not the reason we're talking to the two of you today. In reality, Alturas is quite become the expectation now, went above and beyond and didn't just stop at the financial contribution. Alturas went ahead and put up its resources as volunteers, which is embodied in the two of you, Jeff and Luke. Here we go.
Here you are.
So on that note, I just want to, I want to thank Alturas for that, both for the financial contribution and especially for offering up the two of you. And it wasn't such a one-way street. I recall, Jeff, you talked about your involvement with Startup Week in the past. There was definitely some, personal passion of yours that brought you to the table. I know you've been a Trailhead member, again, for full disclosure. And Luke, switching it over to you, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with Alturas, and what is your personal angle to Startup Week?
Sure, yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us on here. Excited to be assisting with Boise Startup Week, especially because of my own personal experience with it. But I'm originally from Boise and then went away for college and came back. Kind of jumped around, worked in politics for a while, actually ended up working at Picasa. And then last year, got connected with Blake, and my title, which I got to make up, is Special Projects Manager, but I'm just an intern, but it sounds nice. So I am assisting Jeff on the equity side of it, and then some other projects, including the Deal Flow Report, which tracks capital flow around Idaho. People should definitely check that out. It's a cool resource for the community. And then my personal experience with Boise Startup Week was in 2017, I think it was. I actually went to the startup crawl, got connected with some recruiters, and ended up getting a job with Picasa. So I fully appreciate and I'm excited to be working with the startup crawl this year to kind of pay it forward to other folks who might have been or might be in a similar position of where I was at.
Full circle story. I love it. You were a recipient of value during Startup Week, and now you're going to pay it forward for others. Mm-hmm. Love it. As well as that, I think it's worth pointing out that, the Deal Flow Report is something Alturas works on. Boise Startup Week is something Alturas works on. Alturas also invests in startups and does an angel investment. Just overall a very active partner and stakeholder in the ecosystem. And thank you for that again. So let's jump into the kind of programming we have in store for universities and the students for 2020. Jeff and Luke, why don't you just give us a high-level overview of the buckets, column events, or sessions that we can expect for 2020?
Sure. Yeah, I think just to preface the limitations and constraints of this year, I think have enabled us to take a creative approach and actually broaden our engagement to include additional universities than in years past. And when we joined the group, we heard one of the greatest challenges is getting students physically there and on the bus. And so now everyone's going to have the ability to access our events. For those who don't know how Boise Startup Week is moved forward this year, we've got a really cool platform that's being used that will enable both a scheduled viewing of all of the events, as well as some live participation with those that are pre-recorded, which many of them are going to be pre-recorded but played at a certain time, and then they'll be accessible as well. So a lot of opportunities for engagement and hopefully be able to fit into especially the university students' lives, which everyone's got a little different model this year in terms of in class and out of class and hybrid. So what we're trying really to do, and what I think Luke's experience shows, is that the ability to meet face-to-face, to have that direct connection, to have an inside angle as you seek out your first job is really, really critical. And so we thought hard how we could recreate that same experience. So in years past, we've had networking events. We've had something called the Startup Crawl, which included both an in-person component, working with recruiters, and also going into the offices. And so one way that we've recreated that this year is through video tours and introductions to company culture. So we're working with a number of companies that have participated in years past and new ones to provide an inside look at what's going on. Now, this year is also a little interesting in that video of inside the office might look a little bit different. So those videos will be hopefully creative approaches to bringing to life a culture, but it's so important for students and really anyone to get behind the scenes look at what a company is about, their values. And so we want to really bring that to life. I had actually, in my first Boise Startup Week, stumbled into the Startup Crawl. I didn't realize it was for students, and checked out a couple companies. I thought it was a really great way to get to know people and have casual conversations without the pressures of an interview kind of forcing you into that. So one will be the virtual startup crawl is what we're calling it.
Let me stop you on that right there. It's interesting. You bring up a few things, and I think they'll be sort of thematic as we talk. So what you're talking about is really a pivot away from in-person, let's call it a forced pivot, and then, but yet the ability to, because this is going to be, Boise Startup Week is going to be a digitally delivered event, if you will, the reach and the engagement opportunities are greater than they were before. You know, if you want to picture this, 500 students showing up in buses, it's a bit of a logistical nightmare. So, we lost that face-to-face dynamic, as you said, but we're replacing it. I mean, the way you're talking about it is almost like you're running a startup and you just pivoted in the face of the pandemic. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's what Boise Startup Week is all about.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure I capture that on the crawl. It's a very popular event because, as you said, employers, especially the ones in the downtown core that do get the opportunity to show off their offices, show off their break rooms, really give talent a chance to come in a non-threatening, safe environment, like you call it. It's not an interview, but you're kind of on the way to get to that interview. Was just so valuable both for talent and startups. And the other thing you mentioned that I think is important, yes, I think the videos this year of the company culture in the offices, they will look different. But that's actually the point, I think, too. And I'd love your take on it. I mean, it is the new normal or the current normal to have offices that are, not fully staffed and people coming in, on staggered shifts. And so I think there's value in students actually getting a behind the scenes look, especially now that things are different.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think it is going to encourage or force companies to really think about how to communicate with potential candidates, and this is going to be a trend, I think, that is going to continue in terms of needing to do that in a virtual way. And so hopefully the videos that folks will be making or providing will be able to be leveraged for recruiting purposes down the road as well. And I remember walking into a couple companies, and it was more than just seeing the space. It was the side conversation with, oh, here's a product designer over here, and you get to have a chat, and now someone there. You feel more connected to the company. So we think it's going to be we think it's going to scale up really nicely. And the startup crawl in years past has also been limited capacity. I think that's another key component of what this year, in terms of not only just broadening our outreach to more university students, but really being able to give everyone an equal opportunity to participate, not just those with the fastest finger who can RSVP to all the events.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for putting that up.
To build on that a little bit, I mean, you had said you'd stumbled into this as a non-student. And I think especially this year in particular, we want to make clear this is for talent. It's not just students, right? Like if you're like unfortunately a lot of folks right now may be out looking for work, may have lost their jobs, and this is a great opportunity to get engaged with some really great companies in Boise and beyond. And to go back to the student angle a little bit, Luke, I'd be curious to hear from you, who had that experience as a student. What are things that, in particular in this new virtual environment, that companies could do, or maybe that you saw when you were in your student role walking through those companies? What are you looking for? What brings you through that door or into the Zoom meeting and makes a company attractive to you?
Yeah, I think back to when I was doing the walkthroughs and whatnot, and the pieces that really stand out to me are the personal connection that I made with not just the recruiters. We were also able to interact with different staff. Obviously that's different this year, but we just walked through their offices, and if we were interested in a particular field or area, we were able to talk to someone who worked there. At the end of the walkthrough, there was kind of a discussion in a conference room with some of the staff, and just really getting a better idea of what things were really like and the culture that the company had. And I think you can get a great feeling for that walking through, as opposed to, just applying online. You don't really get a great understanding. And so we're hoping to, through the videos, recreate in some sense, even though things are different, what the company is like, what values are important to them, how their employees. I think that they're managing the crisis right now is pretty indicative of kind of the values and what's important to them. And so I think it'll be really beneficial for students to be able to, in some way, still get that feeling.
So Luke, it wasn't the playroom with the ping pong table and the PlayStation VR setup in the basement, or did that help?
That definitely helped. Yeah, I remember walking through the snack room as well. There's some good looking snacks there, and they had a beer on tap, which I didn't ever partake in, but was intriguing to me as we're coming from a different kind of more conservative work environment, seeing that. So it was, you could just tell that it was an exciting environment. They were growing, and this is Vacasa that I'm talking about, but other companies as well, just getting a sense of how they take care of their people.
Yeah, very cool. I think lots of angles for both employers and talent to take advantage and benefit from the startup crawl. I mean, you've heard it. Luke here landed a job doing it. Jeff apparently stumbled into a crawl, which I guess is sequential. If you stumble, naturally you're going to crawl next if you fall. What else do we have in store? So the virtual crawl, a huge win that we're able to replicate that in the way we are, because I think it was probably the most valuable aspect of talent engagement. What else do we have in store?
Yeah, and I'll have Luke share a little bit more about this one too, but I'll tee you up here, Luke. So we're also hosting a panel discussion. And again, to Nick's point, this is really for anyone and will be beneficial for anyone. But we're really targeting kind of the university audience and trying to demystify the hiring process. Especially this year with graduates, there's a lot of uncertainty as to how to approach finding that first job out of school, whether it's grad school or otherwise. And so we really want to just have a very honest conversation. And we've brought together a group of folks on the inside, hiring managers and recruiters and everyone in between. So we've got 4 panelists. I'll have Luke tell you a little bit about that. But the goal is to just, the what to do, what not to do. It's a very intimidating thing. I remember when I was graduating from school, there were job fairs, and there's just a lot of pressure in that situation to have your resume and cover letter buttoned up, and hopefully we'll get to what really matters. That's the goal. And I think that the groups that are participating are those that are taking advantage of the talent that is available right now. And I think all the smart companies who have the financial wherewithal to do so are actually hiring in this moment, and there's a lot of great opportunities to find folks. So yeah, Luke, if you want to maybe share with the group who's going to be joining the panel and any of the questions that have come up.
Yeah, so we have a really good panel lined up. TM, thanks to you for connecting us with a lot of these guys. But Angela Holbrook, she's the founder of Exendra, which is a kind of a networking and recruiting company. So pretty excited to have her there. Jessica Cafferty is also a founder of a recruiting and networking company, Route Networking Group. Grant Stewart, who's at Vacasa, I worked with him both when I was there, but also going through the recruiting process. So he's a great connection to have to kind of explain what that's like. And then Lauren Morris at Love Every, who's kind of in a hiring manager role. So we're looking forward to having kind of a broad discussion with folks who, as Jeff said, are from all over the hiring process. And I think one of the really exciting pieces of this is that we are actually getting questions from students. So we've reached out to the university partners that we have and have in from them that Jeff and the panel are going to be able to address, which is, to the point of having a clear and more direct conversation. I'm sorry, my dog is in the picture here saying hello.
Hi, dog.
The other piece that I'm really excited about, and you guys have touched on, is that we are able to connect with a variety of universities and colleges that in the past haven't been able to, and specifically BYU Idaho, and then the University of Idaho. which are, in Eastern and Northern Idaho, and it's kind of difficult to connect. So through this virtual engagement, we're really able to partner with them and get more students involved.
So on the panel, so we have, like you said, and I know Grant personally as well, great guy to work with over there at Vacasa. We have some folks on the inside, meaning they're hiring internally for their company. We have some recruiters, also Lauren from Love Every. The thought behind that also was, as Jeff put it, demystifying the process. Here's one question I've been getting a lot recently from talent seekers, including students, and that is, hey, I've submitted my application and I haven't heard back. What are the best practices because of the pandemic? Should I follow up? Should I assume they're super busy and they can't get back to me? Should I assume that if I haven't heard back in 2 weeks that I'm not being considered for the job? And I think it'll be really interesting to get the perspective of our panelists on that. And this hopefully is going to be some variation there. But in this environment where, as I'm on this call, my phone is blowing up, my Slack channel is blowing up, I stopped counting the unread emails that I have. It's difficult to focus, right? And it's difficult to do those things. So a recruiter is probably going to find themselves in the same spot as me. And then I really like the takeaways for students, right? So what does that mean practically for my resume? What does that mean for my cover letter, cadence of follow-up? And so, Luke, I know you were onboarded at Vacasa before the pandemic, but is there any best practice that worked for you then in terms of cadence and follow-up? And I think the question I'm really getting is rooted in inexperience and students not wanting to be too pushy on recruiters. What was your experience when you got onboarded at Vacasa and when it came to that?
Yeah, I mean, both Vacasa and then even the job working with Alturas, I think it's just important to keep in mind that those folks are really busy and they have a lot of other stuff going on, other candidates they're talking to. So while students might not want to be pushy, you also want to make sure you're staying at the top of the pile and that you're interested beyond just filling out the application. So what I did both with my current job and then also with Vacasa is just send a friendly email with, just saying, hey, just wanted to follow up with you a couple of days after any of the conversations I had, ask them if they needed anything else from me, and providing them with that information if they asked it. And then also just moving yourself to the top of the pile, but doing it in a respectful and polite way, and understanding that you're really not that much of a bother because that's their job. That's what they're there for. So as long as you're polite and respectful, I think you're fine to do some good follow-up a couple of days after.
That's a key takeaway for me. That's their job. That's actually what they want as leads and potential candidates. And also, I'm really curious to hear from the panel this shift that I've been witnessing in the last 5 to 10 years of recruiting or HR recruiting being an outbound function. It used back in the day when I first got out of school, you wrote 30 applications and you waited to hear back. And that's how companies run it too internally. Whereas now, there's a business development recruiter role when their job is to go outbound and compete for talent and sort of break that inbound, disrupt that previous model. And so I'm really excited to hear more from the panelists on that and how students can take advantage of, being sought after as opposed to feeling like they're a bother to these folks. So that was a key takeaway. Thank you for that.
Yeah, to give a little hiring manager perspective in that, I've been in a position of hiring everything from UX designers to MBA interns like Luke. And I think that what really goes a long way these days is the ability to articulate and communicate your actual work and your role within that work. And while it still seems like the creative, whether it's UX or software developers tend to have portfolios, I do think that format and that kind of medium is a really good way to communicate your projects. And I've seen that more and more where candidates will have individual personal websites And I do think that that's a really nice way to differentiate and bring to life something that one-page resume, which is still the format that's expected, for most applications, and a cover letter, it gets into way more detail. And to me, it's also allowed hiring managers to better understand how to assess a candidate and where their strengths might be, where they might be looking to develop. As part of Alturas' hiring process, something that we've begun implementing is a practical portion of that interview, and so we compensate during that time, but we give people a project, short 10-day, 2-week project as they have time to work on. I think that more and more employers are moving towards a model where there is some component, and there are more tools out there to help people assess whether it's your ability to write in certain coding languages, or just really show what you've done, your track record, and bring that to life. I think that's a huge opportunity, and the space that still has a lot of growth potential for candidates.
So 2 hacks there that I heard. I want to make sure we highlight those as takeaways. One of the hacks was, I've seen developers have their GitHub portfolio ready to go. But what you're talking about is, a personal website, for example. I've seen those as well, and they're very effective. So that's one hack. The other hack being, as you talked about, tools and methods of staying engaged. And I almost lost my train of thought there. But the website was one. And then please remind me, what was the other thing you just talked about?
Having a practical portion, allowing a candidate to really show, as opposed to just tell, what your interviews happen to do. Yeah. And
so I guess the takeaway for that is for talent seekers is, be open to a temporary project-based, defined in time engagement with an employer. I may even say, don't stop short of suggesting that to the employer. I've worked in organizations where the organization would use an internship for that very same purpose, because a student or a talent seeker will get a chance to prove themselves in the 3 months and sort of see if there's a culture fit and a functional fit. And at the same time, if it doesn't work out after the internship and the company decided not to keep them on, it wouldn't look so detrimental on the talent seeker's resume, because on the resume it shows as an experience, time-bound. There was a project that can actually probably speak to what they did in terms of work, but it also doesn't look like they were terminated. And I know that goes through people's minds, especially young talent, as they're trying to build, their resume as their own portfolio. So, thank you for reminding me of that takeaway.
Yeah, and hiring's a two-way street, and I remember coming out of school, you have your list of questions that you take into the interview. You need to be prepared to ask a few questions, so you show that you studied up and you understand the company, and that you're engaged in the process. But it's intimidating to ask. It's intimidating to try to, as someone fresh out of school, to interview the company as much as they're interviewing you. And I think that those practical portions and those transition periods are a nicer way to go about kind of dating before you get married. And I've done that actually in the last 2 roles that I've had. I've had defined projects and transition periods where it was, let's get to know each other and see if it's a good fit. And I think that works just as well at my stage in a career, 10 plus years of professional experience, as it does right out of school. And so, I don't know if that is a trend necessarily, but it's something that we definitely support and find value in.
No, I think, trend is one thing, but it's a tool at the end of the day. If talent is looking for a meaningful next step short of getting hired full-time for that role, this is a great alternative. So no, thank you for sharing that. And the last hack I'll point out, because for one, you dropped it into the chat for everyone. Thank you for that, Jeff. The Good Jobs Report. So this is something that's put together by one of the speakers of our panel, actually, right? So this is Lauren from Love Every. And then tell us a little bit about the Good Jobs Report. Why should people pay attention to the link that you put in there?
Yeah, it's for anyone who's on this call that is is running a startup or is part of one. This is just a newer tool. I think they've got about 22 issues that have gone out, but it's really focused in areas of development, design, marketing, and tech product jobs. And it's all from the Boise area and also remote positions that Lauren's accumulated. He's full-time employed. He just does this on the side, but it's a cool tool, and you can sign up if you have a job to post. I'm not sure what his subscribership is right now, but I know it's been picking up steam. It's been shared to me through a few avenues, even prior to meeting Lauren, and has been a really good tool. There are a number of other good tools that we'll hopefully be sharing on the panel, a little teaser for where to go find jobs, find and new companies that are coming out, learn about them. And so, yeah, this Good Jobs Report's a great one. It comes right to your inbox every week. And yeah, I would encourage anyone to sign up or submit a job through there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's great. All right, so we got the crawl, we got the panel. What else in terms of categories?
Number 3, so we have, similar to Nick's format, we are doing a reverse pitch, which is really exciting. This is replacing a couple of the different pitch competitions that were held and targeted towards university students. This one's open both to high school students as well as university students. So we have 2 different cohorts, and the way that the reverse pitch works is we've gone out to a number of companies and really asked for real issues. What are you challenged with? What are you trying to solve for? And during Boise Startup Week, we'll be boiling those down and having video explanations about the prompts, give some background on the problem statements that we're trying to solve for, and then cut university students and high school students loose on these. There are going to be teams of, I believe, 3 individuals per team, and there'll be cash prizes for both. This one, unfortunately, is only open to high school and university students. And we'll be picking finalists later in the winter. I believe December is our target right now. And then we'll provide some mentorship for some finalists and do a pitch competition for those finalists. But just another great way to engage students. And we're hoping with the universities that we're working with this year that they might be able to incorporate that into some curriculum and offer that to students as extra credit or part of a course on entrepreneurship or otherwise. So we're really excited about that, and cash prizes go a long way. I think Nick said it best: if it's not pizza, the one thing that'll bring university students to the table is money. And so this will come in the form of cash for the university students, and then scholarship money for our high school participants and finalists.
Wow. Okay. So this reverse pitch, there's prize money. And I believe it's teams up to 3. The winners will get $1,000 per team member. So that's $3,000 per team of 3. They will be exposed to entrepreneurship concepts and methods. They will get a mentor assigned to them if that's needed between October, when these problem statements are going to be kicked off and shared with the world, and they go to work. But lastly, if I'm a student and I'm considering picking one of these problems, what better way for me to get in front of that company than if I pick their problem and then I go to solve it and I do a pitch, I pre-record that. Hey, if I put a link of that pre-recording on my resume or write to recruiter and say, hey, by the way, this is a real project I've done, real in their sense, for your company. I just think it's another great hack of getting in front, showcasing, your abilities as a talent-seeking student.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all part of the way that we can engage and connect students, and we're hopeful that those will lead to successful internships and maybe some positions as well. And there's really nothing with pitch competitions to have a practical issue that you're working on and solving for a company that has said, we need help with this. I think that's going to be really exciting for students to work on something that feels real. It doesn't feel in some way manufactured for an academic setting. This is live stuff that folks are working on, which leads us to our final thing, and that is trying to really build those direct connections between the students and the companies that are participating in all of these events and otherwise. And so we haven't fully locked down exactly what the format is going to be, but we'll be providing the names and information, and potentially resumes as well, of students who express interest in certain companies to those businesses, and allow them to go through their process and help facilitate that introduction. This is really trying to replace some of the networking that we had with recruiters and students being able to engage face to face. But hopefully through participating in the panel discussion, through participating in viewing of the culture videos, and participating in the pitch competition, we'll be able to actually really bridge those connections. And like you said, recruiting is an outbound function these days. And so we're basically want to facilitate giving leads. So again, anyone who's on the call, if your company's hiring, if you're interested in connecting with university students, please let us know, and we'll make sure that we figure out a way to get you involved in that process. And we do want students and put some impetus on them to do research and to really look into who they're interested in working for. So this will be hopefully a more qualified candidate than just a list of students. This will be people have really sought out your company. So we're excited for that. So yeah, four great events going on. Boise Startup Week is going to be an awesome one this year. I think there's going to be a ton of content, and it's going to be more accessible and available than it ever has before. So we're excited about it, and these constraints are good creatively. And I think TMU and everyone else behind Boise Startup Week has done a great job to do that in all of the different tracks. I think the university track really has benefited from that creativity and the ability to pivot.
So Jeff, we for the Hacking for Home Building, we'll drop something in the chat, but for students that are interested in everything that you've covered, where do they go to learn more? And then also, I know that the schedule is always like a huge game of Tetris, getting everything blocked out and blocked in, and I know that'll go live at some point. But for students or companies, where can they go to learn more, get registered, and so on?
Sure. I might kick one of those over to TM. So in terms of participating, if anyone on this call or who watches the recording is interested in providing a video, please reach out. My email is in the chat here, and maybe we can get it sent around afterwards. But it's jeffreyblickman@alturas.com. And yeah, we'd be happy to chat with you and hopefully sign you up to participate. We'll have the schedule coming out here at the end of the year, team. That's the one. I'm not sure exactly when the drop date is, but it'll be a big announcement and go around. And then Luke and I are talking directly with all of the universities, and Nick included in that, but all of the folks who are really engaged in Boise Startup Week, and so they're helping to facilitate those connections to the students and get them excited about it. And I think we've got a lot of good energy moving towards that. But yeah, team, if you want to wrap that up.
Certainly, yes. No, that's kind of what I'm here for too. So if you're a student, a talent seeker, or you just want to get involved and attend Boise Startup Week, our registration goes live on Monday. So go to boisestartupweek.org and you can register from our website. It's free to attend for general admissions. I'll just put that out there. And in terms of the schedule will be released by the end of September. And to just pull on the same thread that Nick kind of brought up, it is a giant game of Tetris. And this year, due to the format being remote, we are working with the vast majority of content being pre-recorded, and then some of the content being done live at what we call the main stage at Jump. And it's curating, that game of Tetris leading up to the week of October 26th that we're in the middle of right now. So look forward to the schedule, around the end of September. The Boise Startup Week Committee is working hard on, putting together a meaningful and effective schedule for everyone involved. And again, starting Monday, please go to boisestartupweek.org. There'll be a registration button at the top of the webpage.
All right.
And I see we have some additional resources dropped in our chat. Kara dropped in the registration link and flyer for Hacking for Home Building, so check that out as well.
Yeah, I think this may be the most active chat we've ever had on Survive Thrive. So lots of resources out there. Obviously, there's a ton of stuff coming up with Boise Startup Week and just a lot of good things in store for this fall. A couple things just to point out. One, I failed to mention that the Hacking for Home Building is a partnership that we have with our College of Engineering, where construction management, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, all of these programs that are applicable live, and they've been hugely supportive of us. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, any student can join in regardless of discipline. And I also wanted to say thank you to Alturas. You guys are also a supporter of the Idaho Entrepreneur Challenge at the Venture College, which is another statewide competition we do every spring. So like TM said at the start, Alturas is obviously a big part of what makes this ecosystem so special and a big part of the startup community. And Jeff and Luke, you guys are both critical to that. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing what you're up to with Boise Startup Week. And if there aren't any other questions or items that the group wants to cover, we can give everyone 10 minutes back in their day. And hopefully you all have a good rest of your day and rest of your week. And we will see you in a couple weeks for another preview of Boise Startup Week, and which will be here before we know it, the week of the 26th. So unless there's anything else, appreciate your time, and thanks to everyone for signing on. Jeff?
Just one real quick shameless plug. Alturas is kind of in part of our approach to bringing value to the startup community and the business ecosystem. We're working on a resource that hopefully will be ready for launch at and during Boise Startup Week. It's called builtinidaho.org. It's going to be a resource that houses some really great data around transactions, so kind of the intersection of companies and capital. We also hope to partner with some other organizations to consolidate some of the events and calendaring that happens throughout the year. We want to get resources out for anyone really who's starting a business or operating a business, things that we found to be helpful. And we're going to put it out there and hopefully help try to fill in and identify additional gaps so we can invest our time and resources in helping to fill. For us, it's not about financial investment all the time and sponsoring. It's really how can we bring resources to the table and value to the table. So look for that. Team, I want to talk to you about that as well. And we'll put out an announcement when that's ready to go.
Yeah, I think the ecosystem is just fortunate to have Alturas as a stakeholder and engaged participant. At the same time, Boise Startup Week is just really lucky and grateful to have the two of you with your time, your abilities, and your passion for Startup Week, put in your time and effort to pull this off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye for now. Thank you.